I can't believe we're back at Mothering Sunday again. I can't believe it's been a year since the last time. There's been so much has happened in the last year, both bad and good, but it seems to me it's just been like the blink of an eye. Mothering Sunday's always had a certain importance in people's lives. Once upon a time, it was the day during Lent that you went home to your mother church to worship. In a way, I suppose it was a wee bit like poor Joseph and Mary having to go to Bethlehem when the census was called. But that's what it kind of reminded me about. But I remember my mum telling me that when she was young, when she was a wee girl, my gran worked for a family in a house in Troon. Now, this wasn't unusual, as at that time, that we're looking at the 1920s, really, this wasn't unusual because there weren't many career options open to young women at that time. Now, nowadays, it only takes about 25 minutes to get from New Mills to Troon. New Mills was where my family was based. But back then, it was a very different story. Very, very few people owned a car, so public transport was heavily relied upon. And people working in service, like my gran, or people, maybe boys or whatever, doing an apprenticeship who'd had to move away from home, couldn't really get back to see their families very often. And that was a sacrifice that they had to make to have work. Now, using my gran as an example, it was a case of when she went into service, she knew she would rarely see her family. At that time, household staff were allowed one afternoon off a week. Now, it was only an afternoon because they had to work in the morning and do all the things they would normally do. Then they were allowed a few hours off in the afternoon, but then they had to be back for whatever they had to do in the evening, whether that to serve dinner or to get the rooms ready or whatever. So it really was only an afternoon they got to themselves once a week. And very rarely they had a whole day off. But back then as well, I mean, nowadays, lots of people move away for work or for if they meet someone or whatever. And it's not as big a deal because we've all got telephones. We can FaceTime one another. The world is such a smaller place now. But back then, hardly anybody even had a telephone. And the only means of contact that my gran had with my family, or her family anyway, was writing letters. So when it came around to Mothering Sunday, that was a really, really special day because that was one day in the year that people in service were guaranteed almost the full day off, which gave time for them to get the train, to go wherever they were going and visit their family for a few hours. It wasn't a regular occurrence and it was very, very precious. And that's why I think Mothering Sunday has become so precious to a lot of people. In the secular world these days, though, Mothering Sunday or Mother's Day has become, like all other celebrations, big business. And you can see that in the weeks leading up to it, first of all, with all the different cards and gifts on show. And I noticed in Tesco's the other day, other supermarkets are available, that the buckets and buckets of flowers were meeting you at the door. You could hardly get in for all these flowers. And by the end of today, probably hardly any left. But they always take the opportunity when they get it to try and not just make money, but to make sure everybody gets a wee present, I suppose, on Mother's Day. At the very heart of Mother's Day, though, it gives us all the opportunity to stop just for a moment and think of the people in our lives who have and who do look after us or mother us. People who have had such a positive influence on us that they have made us better people. This doesn't always mean a mum. It could be a dad, a gran, a papa, an aunt, an uncle, brother, sister, friend, loads of variations. And so we pause to honour these ones who have nurtured us, who have cared for us, and who have mothered us in different ways throughout our lives. Today is a special day when we think about and recognise their love, sacrifice, and unique role in shaping our lives. The theme of today's service has been based on the gift of peace, and that's been reflected through the service and especially in our readings. I think it's quite apt that this is what we're thinking about today, especially just now in a world that is filled with uncertainty, conflict, and tension. Today we reflect on the peace we need, the peace that mothers and caregivers bring, and the peace that we, as a community, must work to nurture and share with each other. Peace is a wonderful word. It can mean many different things to many different people. Tranquility, calmness, restfulness, quietness, stillness. In our world just now, though, peace is an elusive thing. We live in a time when uncertainty seems to surround us. Economic challenges, political unrest, threats of war, global warming, and the personal struggles we face each day can leave us feeling uneasy, anxious, and weary. And even within the closest of families and the most loving of families, there can be times of trouble and upset. I have found in many instances when family challenges are faced, it is mothers and caregivers who often bear the brunt of them all, while at the same time trying to maintain a stable, nurturing environment for their children, even when they're facing and managing their own concerns and stresses. In this context, the gift of peace is not just something to be desired, it is a deep need. This peace isn't just the absence of conflict. It's the presence of something much, much greater. It's a deep, abiding sense of calm, security, and wholeness that comes from God. It is a peace that surpasses all understanding. Earlier, we heard these words from John 14, verse 27. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give you. I do not give you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid. These words are special enough, but even more so when we think about what was happening to Jesus at the time. This verse was spoken during the Last Supper, as Jesus was getting ready to leave his disciples. He knows the challenges that they will soon face and the turmoil that will surround them. Yet, even knowing what was going to happen to him, Jesus offers his friends peace, a peace not of this world, but one that comes from him, rooted in his love and presence. The peace that Jesus offers isn't dependent on circumstances, but on a relationship with the Prince of Peace himself. Mums and other caregivers are often called to embody this peace in their own lives. They can be called to be peacemakers in their own families, guiding their children, not just through moments of conflict, but always teaching them what it means to live from a place of peace and security. Jesus offers his followers peace in the midst of trouble, and mums are often called to do the same for their families. As I said earlier, today we recognise and honour all the mums and caregivers who have poured out their love and care for us all. They are the ones who, in the face of challenges, offer safety and security. They are the ones who teach us how to love, how to forgive, and how to live with compassion. When we talk about honouring mothers, it's not just biological motherhood we're talking about, though. No, we must celebrate the countless women from all walks of life who mother and care for others in many, many different ways. These women, nurses, doctors, foster carers, teachers, friends, are acknowledged for the role they play in the wider community. As they demonstrate patience, empathy, and wisdom, they teach us what it means to be peacemakers. We may never know the positive effect our actions and attitude may have on a child in later years. But if we do all we can in God's love, seeds of love and understanding will have been sown. We can only pray that how we have treated young lives will help build them up and to eventually guide them to the peace that God alone can provide. In today's culture, it's easy to think of peace in terms of avoiding awkward situations or escaping for 5 minutes of quiet on our own. And that can be true. But what we need to remember is that the peace of Christ goes further and deeper than we are sometimes comfortable with. The peace of Christ is about wholeness. We all have times when we are hurt. We all have times when we get angry. We all have times when we get upset. This is when the peace of Christ is hard to accept, because it is about reconciliation when something is broken, forgiving what is hurtful, and trusting God when our lives seem to be falling apart. We need for ourselves, our children, and for others to be able to resolve conflict with love. We need to learn how to forgive, because forgiveness can be so, so difficult. And we also need to learn how to be gracious, whatever situation we are in. Imagine the difference in families and local communities if we all lived like this. But imagine also the difference if world leaders lived in the peace of Christ. The world needs peacemakers now more than ever. Our society faces division, pain, upset, unrest, violence, and discrimination. So we need people who can speak words of kindness and affirmation, who model peaceful behaviour, and who can show grace in times of conflict. Not only that, we need to teach our children how to resolve disputes and differences respectfully, to be able to listen to one another and to empathise with each other. Mothers and caregivers, not just here, but all over the world, can help to shape a generation that values peace over violence, reconciliation over division, and love over hate. In our other reading this morning from Matthew, we hear Jesus saying in verse 9, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God." What a legacy to give our children. What a difference to the world a generation of peacemakers could make. This is a challenge to mothers and caregivers, not just here in Newfoundland or Kilmarnock, not even just in Scotland, but worldwide. As I close today, let us leave with hearts full of gratitude for the gift of peace we have received from God, and for the mothers, the caregivers, and others who embody that peace in our lives. Let us be inspired to be peacemakers, both in our own homes and in the world. And may we never forget that the peace of Christ is the greatest gift of all, a gift that is freely given and always available to us. I pray that God will bless you all and that his peace will be with you today and always. Amen.